morning, good day, good evening to all of us wherever we are. Today we're going to speak about lessons learned the day after. Now we have a lot on our agenda and we were asking ourselves if to hold the breakout rooms, but we'll try to squeeze them in because they're important and we will try to listen to your answers and responses. We will give you maybe less time to think, but we will try sharing the information and thinking together. So let me start. I'll share my screen. Here we go. So today we're speaking about lessons learned, but not on how to develop the lessons. Please do not mute everyone out there. Okay, thank you. Not how. Yes, 1, 2. Okay. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Now you hear me. Hi, Vadim. Okay, so now we're speaking today about lessons learned, but we're speaking about something very specific in this very large discipline. We're speaking about the second part, not how do we debrief, how do we create lessons, rather about the day after we created the lessons. First of all, I'll start and I'll say that a basic assumption is that lessons learned are very important. An important element in continual learning, in our drive to excellence. The major way, the most easy way, the most straightforward way to drive to excellence is through continual improvement. The most straightforward way to drive day after day, time after time, to continue learning is through learning lessons and implementing them. So no one has any doubt or no one is surprised that we all know that lessons learned are very important. However, we find that in too many organizations, we find shallow lessons. We come to organizations, we all open their lessons summaries, the lessons debriefs, and we find too many lessons that are shallow, that are not deep, that seem trivial, that what did you want to say? This is what you learned? We find too many times there's a low level of usage of knowledge, that people have debriefed, have worked very hard, maybe felt uncomfortable in these processes, opened themselves, spoke about maybe some mistakes they had, but yet, why should we do it? Low level of usage. And we find too many times that's also, if I go back, a low level of debriefing. And I think that it's connected to one another, because if there are shallow lessons, so people won't use them. And if people don't use them, organizations will turn and slightly stop learning the lessons and stop holding such processes if they can. But I may say that the problem is not only the shallow lessons. Even in places where we have great lessons, we find that people do not use the lessons enough. And that's why we want to speak today about the day after. We will start with a very quick breakout room where we will we will give you 5-6 minutes. Please share ideas how to increase usage. We believe in collective wisdom. We believe that all your ideas are great. So please take 5 minutes. We put more breakout rooms. There was a request after last week that you liked it, that we have only 4 people in our breakout rooms. So we have more rooms today.
Zani.
Okay. So please come on and share. I'll stop my sharing. We are now going to break you out into breakout rooms. Please share you on this. Hello, is someone now in our room? Let's now go and split ourselves. We have 68 people, so we will have 16 rooms. And take your time, start walking. That's what we're going to speak about today.
Moria, please share the link to the.
Thank you, Vincent. The link is in the chat. The link to the breakout rooms is already in the chat.
I don't see it personally. Yeah.
Okay, so we will copy it and put it again. Maybe here. It's
okay. Great.
Maybe
Sorry.
Those who didn't yes. share the room earlier didn't see it.
Okay. Thank you, Moria.
Have fun. Great learning. Great sharing.
Moria? Go to the breaking room with them?
Whatever you wish. You don't have to. You can go. You cannot go. We're speaking about ways to use. It's an opportunity to know people if you want to. Not to share or yes to share. Rinat, you are today the facilitator. You can choose whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going.
And you look great.
recorded.
Oh,
Wow, that was a sprint.
yeah, somehow I got disconnected to room number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Same as hers, I think.
In a few seconds, everyone will join us.
Moria, can we see the presentation, please?
Of course, we all can see. We can all see the presentation, and I will. Yes, please.
I was looking in the Google Drive and I couldn't find it there.
Oh, okay. So you would probably add while we are speaking. I'll start. I went through the rooms, most of the rooms through you while you were walking, and I want to start with room number 15. Yes, we have to conduct AARs, maybe even turn them to be mandatory. It's so true, but we will try and now speak on what we have to do after these AARs take place, because I saw it in several rooms, people saying that lessons have to take place. And we find here that people say, share what really went well in order to help the projects go better. Okay, this is yet how to conduct good ARs. Now we have put here several additional ideas. Shared the document and the lessons learned in the form of documents and case sharing sessions. I want to suggest today a complementing way how to do it, because we all have the regular ways, and I want to suggest a few additional ways how we can do it. We have here great ideas as well to link the lessons and embed them into processes. And that's an important part. But how do we do this work? What is our methodology? How do we take them and pack them, bring them close to the relevant people? How do we bring it 1 month before key activity? Wow, we have here a great star on everything. How do we make them easily accessible? They always have to turn into action plans? I loved in room 12 the usage of the tips and tricks, because I believe that not all lessons are yes, no. A lot of the lessons that we learn are recommendations, tips, best practices, how things should be done. I heard here several people speaking about speaking it out, finding tools for information to share broadly, and people speaking about easy to access. Rewards, it's a bit difficult. So I want to take all what you said and to structure it and to add upon it, so we have a unified or maybe a structured body of knowledge on what we can do with the lessons learned the day after. I'm describing a holistic approach to lessons learned. Holistic approach, this is the name of a book I've written on it. It's not everything innovational. It's things that we spoke about here and I organized, but it's also added value, additional ways that maybe we didn't think about the day yesterday. So I'll start by shattering the myths. One of the myths is that lesson is task, that we want to come out with only action items. So I want to say no. I'll give you an example. We had a fire, we had a lot of smoke. Because of the smoke, we didn't find the way way the equipment in order to turn down the fire, and it took too much time. So maybe our recommendation is that every time we have safety equipment, we put it in a fixed place. So it doesn't matter if it's a room that I know, I'm familiar with, or a new room that I didn't even pay attention because I was very busy when I went into it. I always know that in the same place in the room, I have that equipment. So the task may be, there may be a task telling someone in charge, dear person, you go to all the rooms where there is equipment and change the placement, do it within 3 weeks. Bravo. That is a task, that is an action item. But there is also a lesson saying that when I define and when I design and plan new facilities, I should think what is most important for everyone to know where to find, and always put it in a fixed place. And it could be the fire equipment for the rooms, or it could be the search tool in an intranet. So this is a lesson, this is a task, an action item. They may derive from the same thing. Sometimes I have only action items. Sometimes I only have lessons. I'll give you an example. Every time you have a project with more than 3 subcontractors, use a work plan having a greater buffer for integration and for management. It's not a task. It's a lesson, a good practice for next time. The second myth I want to regard is that every lesson can be put and fits into a procedure, into a yes, wherever we find an SOP that we can put our lesson into it, hooray, we are happy. But too many times, we don't have a procedure, we don't have an SOP, and there's no good reason to invent it, to develop it, just in order to have a placement for our procedure. Because our practice, our lessons are many times one sentence, a tactic how to do better things. And not everything fits into a procedure, or because I do not have a procedure, or because it's only a recommendation and the SOP and the procedures only include those things that I have to do or I must not do. And here I have considerations, what to think about, how to consider things, how to take a decision maybe. Maybe how to take a good decision is the lesson itself. So not every time I have a procedure or an SOP. Wherever I have, my life is easy. One of the rooms spoke about the library. And I want to say that a library is fine, but it's not good enough, and it cannot stand there by itself. Because when I have a new occasion, a new project, new event that I'm preparing to, and I want to check and learn from previous events and previous projects. So I have to go in and out and in and out and in and out additional into every file that includes one of these learnings, one of these set of lessons. And I say, no, 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 oh, this is relevant. No, 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 maybe this. And sometimes it's on page 7, sometimes on page 1, sometimes it's a presentation, sometimes it's a document, sometimes it's divided into different chapters, and it has some here lessons, some there lessons. It's not very effective. It's not very efficient. And I tell you the truth, too many times I will be very picky going in and out in this thread, and I will choose only those events that seem to be very close to the event that I have now. Missing very important lessons that were learned in different contexts, but are very relevant to my situation. And I want to add another myth. Just a minute, where did I lose myself? Here, that peer assistance is enough, will do. Because too many times, we all read Learning to Fly, Chris Collison, giving us the fantastic idea before you have an activity, look around yourself, look around you, find a close project, sit with them a full day, learn from them. That is great, but that is always one project. I can do it with one project. I can do it with 2 projects. I cannot take the wisdom of the crowds. I cannot enjoy the majority of the lessons that were learned. So peer assistant is nice, but it's only very, very partial, and it doesn't give us the solution, helping us use the knowledge, being aware of the knowledge, being able to use it. So I want to come up with a set of recommendations that together will build us a new puzzle that will give us a holistic approach. And the first recommendation that I want to suggest is to classify our recommendations, classify the lessons that were learned. I call them recommendations, and I'll explain why. And I suggest having 4 drawers, 4 boxes. Don't kill me. The first drawer, the first box, are those lessons that we do not use in the organization. Because too many times people were very enthusiastic and they come up with so many ideas. And if a manager looks at them, he says, or someone who is in charge of the lessons looks at them and says, oh my God, these are incorrect. These are correct, but not cost effective. These will make us be slaves to the lessons and won't have time for the organization itself. These may be nice, but they will take too much of our time. So not every lesson is really a good lesson. So if we have someone who manages these lessons, some of them may be ignored. No one has to be insulted, because we can always explain that we had to prioritize cost effective, what will go in first. Now, those that remain, some of them can turn into tasks. As we said, action items. Dear person, go to the all open projects. Please check in all open projects if any one of them is having the same problem that we now experienced, and please tell them what we learned. Broadcasting, sending something, speaking with someone, writing a procedure, entering adding something to an SOP. Every one of these are tasks. We also have changes. Changes can seem to be tasks, but they are very large, because tasks, you can take a task is something that is straightforward. You can assign a person, assign a date, and let him work. Change is more sophisticated. Changes are like tasks, but they are huge. Changes are making something other to be changing something. I'm trying not to use the word change, but trying to have a new habit, a new way of work, or a new way of thinking. And it's not that I cannot assign someone and tell him, take a date and start working, but I want to differentiate the task from the changes, because if we want to be serious, a regular debriefing should have between 0 to 1, and in extraordinary cases, only 2 changes, not more than that. We can have 5 tasks, 6 tasks, not more than that also. But changes, you finish a learning, 0, 1, 2, not more. Be careful, because if you come out from a learning, from a debriefing session with 30 tasks, and 10 of them are revolutionary, that change the way we work, that change the way we think, no one will have time to work. We always have to prioritize. And the last drawer of the input lessons, of the recommended lessons, are the lessons. Those good sayings, those best practices, those good practices, how we should act in the future. Recommendations, how to act in the future, the do's and the don'ts, the recommended and the recommended not to do, in order to be with better performance, with better innovation, with better success in our projects, events, and doings. So that was the first thing. Don't look at all the lessons as one box, as one bucket. Divide them and put the lessons in one side and let the other things have their channels of work. Ignoring, do nothing. Tasks, put them in action item. Routine, changes, assign one person and let him start working. What do we do with the tasks, with the lessons? So my second recommendation is that the lessons themselves should be extracted from the files, from the debriefs, not transferred out, but copied. And we store them in a different knowledge base. We store them in somewhere else. If we had a full file, we had a document with what happened, and we have it there in the AR, what happened, and what did we expect, and why, and why, and why, and what do we think? Take out the bottom lines, store them somewhere else. Customers should be involved in development projects wherever possible. A senior project manager should lead each project budgeted over $1 million. By the way, I have here a spelling mistake. By the way, I do not like these lessons, but these are lessons. And the first thing we do, these are real lessons that I found in debriefings. And the first thing we do, first of all, we take them out, we copy them, and we put them in a different knowledge base. I'm saying knowledge base, think of a huge Excel or SharePoint table or any other table you have. And we are starting to put them there. We will add things, please be patient. Now comes the most important part. I can't say most important, the other elements will be insulted. So now comes a relatively important task. We want to improve our lessons. People thought about them, but they were in the context where they learned the lesson. They were in the context of a specific failure, success, event, project. We now want to start working on them. The first thing we do is we generalize them. They were learned maybe in a context of projects with high risk level, but maybe the specific lesson we are looking on now is relevant no matter what the risk of the technology is, and no matter what the software, what the software programming is. And maybe it's no matter what industry it is. And that part is very important, because if I would look at the library, I would look at the tagging of the event, I would look at things that were similar to myself. When I have 3 or 4 lessons from the same debriefing, each one will be generalized in a different manner, because I take the first lesson and I ask myself, this happened in a specific industry. Is it relevant only to this industry? Is it relevant to all industries? Is it relevant only to industries with A and B conditions, etc.? And we ask the questions, the categorizing questions on each lesson by itself, and each one will get a different generalization. The second thing we do, we read the sentence again and we ask ourselves, does this really demonstrate added value? I'll give you an example. We had on the other page a sample that I extracted from one of the debriefings, involved the customer. Oh dear God, we learned that on first day of project management. Where's the added value? It even in this case is not practical. Sometimes these two elements are connected, and sometimes they stand one by what each one has a different value. So it's not that it's not real. we have too many cases where customers were not involved enough, and we find failures because people didn't involve them. But we cannot tell people involve the customer. We have to be practical. We have to understand that they cannot do it every time. So maybe it's better here to say in such cases, it is important to involve the customer, even if you are very, very busy. Let's say every time you have an important issue, a conflict, you involve the customer. Involve the customer at least at every stage point, at every milestone, in every stage gate, but also every time you have a conflict. So this is already practical because I cannot go with the customer with me all day. Be sure that you have added value, that you are bringing something new to the table. It is a very good idea. It's not a must, but it's a good idea to include the rationale. Why do we think this lesson is important? Sorry for a moment. Many times, the user, the one who is reading our lessons, will say, yes, yes, yes. But if I add there, and it is very important because even though it sounds trivial, the last year the company lost $10 million because it didn't do it. So the person will stop. He will think again. He will consider it more deeply. So sometimes when it's trivial, it stops the person and makes him use the knowledge, even if he would stop it, skip it, and do the mistake. Sometimes it helps when he doesn't understand why it's important in order to help him understand why this lesson is so crucial and so important in the specific case. Because otherwise, we are in risk of A, B, and C. Or we, of course, can say it in positive sentences. The fifth part of this improvement is be sure that you have only agreed lessons. And this is a bit tricky because, if I Google something, even in my organization, and I find 7 documents, and I say that 5 don't help me at all, but 2 are fairly good, I'm very, very satisfied. But if I enter a knowledge base with lessons, and you remember it's bottom line, it's not now documents. You remember we have a database, a knowledge base. And I look at the first 2 ones, and they are not relevant, and they don't give me added value, or they don't seem practical, or I don't agree with them. What do? I lose trust. I do not trust this knowledge base because I don't agree with something, and I won't look at the next ones to see if something else is helpful for me. So we have to be here very delicate. In some cases, we will think 2 times, 3 times how to write it very, very in an accurate way. Sometimes even to skip a lesson if we think that it won't help us because it won't be agreed. We will find other channels to distribute that knowledge. An important thing that I didn't find in no other place, and it can be done only because we put them in we extract them to a different knowledge base. Merge the new lesson with the previous lessons that already sit in the knowledge base. It's not everyone who has to do it. It's a lessons manager. It's a lessons knowledge base manager. And he starts searching for similar lessons. And he may find a lesson that 3 options or 4 options. This is new, nothing alike. No problem, let's add it. He or she can find that it repeats a lesson that we already have. That's great because we are consistent, but it's very, very bad because that means that we didn't assimilate the lessons, we don't use them enough, and the problem, the wrong behavior or the wrong acting repeated more than once. And there's no sense in having a knowledge base if you repeat the lessons and repeat the problems. So in that case, we take an action item and try understanding how to do something differently so people will be more aware. And we will speak about that in a few minutes. Now, the next, we have another case where it may be only similar, complementing some other knowledge, some other lesson, and then we merge them maybe into one and define it in order to include both parts. And if it contradicts something that we already have in the knowledge base, so a few options. The past one, maybe the old one, may be irrelevant. Maybe they both are relevant, but each one has a different case, and we have to define better the context in which is right. And maybe, yes, or maybe the new one is wrong. So it makes us rethink. So the merging is very important. And it's the last thing, if everything is done, the last thing, what, as we say, last but not least, is be sure that it's written in a clear manner. So not only the contributor understands it, rather the typical user will understand what we wanted. Remember, he has here a sentence, he has here a paragraph, a short paragraph. It's not a long story. He has the bottom line, what to do, and what to do, when, and why. So here,
Maria, Rudolph here. There is a question. So
yes, thank you.
I'll just read out the question, and maybe if it is being answered later, then you could tell us. Okay, so Michael Sequeira is asking, if lessons learned are recorded, is it necessary that experts only should validate, or is there alternate to that, alternate theory?
I believe that an expert is the one who shall, everyone can produce a lesson, but the expert should validate it to be sure that it stands in all our conditions. I call it, we purify, we prove it, we purified it, refine it, we make the lesson better so it can be really usable and really valuable. We add metadata. Thank you, Rudolph, for helping me out. We add metadata.
There are questions, so I will keep asking you whenever there's a break, okay?
Thank you. Okay, and Rinat, you probably will have a few less minutes. We have here another case study. Rinat from Jerusalem Municipality will speak and will tell us how she used this methodology in her case, but let's try rushing, and I'll try also taking the questions. We add metadata, maybe the stage, maybe the technology. So we have some content-based metadata that has to do with our context, with our world of content. It could be in one organization, we have a knowledge base for lessons dealing with projects and maybe with projects of the organization, and maybe another one with different metadata dealing with sales and marketing. So it's context-based, and if we choose our metadata, of course, we always have a link to the debriefing itself. If it's not classified, we have links to the contributor, we have the date. I won't have time speaking about it. It's more deep, and we have our content-based metadata, of course, the title and the good practice itself. You can see that we have here the rationale, what to do, when to do, and why. Now, up to now, I spoke about how to build this knowledge base. I want to spend a few minutes to speak about something that many of you spoke about in the breakout rooms, how to embed the knowledge in the organizational environment. And I want to divide it into 3 parts. How we embed it into our organizational routines, in signs on the walls, in annual conferences, in campaigns, in newsletters that we have. Sometimes we have organization newsletters and we embed every time 2 last lessons into there. Sometimes we have a special newsletter for a special newsletter for lessons that comes out every month, highlighting 2 lessons and reminding people that with a link they can turn in. We sometimes embed it into team meetings, into training. I love embedding it into training because there on the training, you have 1 slide for 2 hours. And that slide is a link to the knowledge base. And if it's, let's say, a course on system integration, and you have a session speaking about lessons learned in system integration. So when the trainer, when the educator, when the guide goes into this link with the people who are working on the training now, they all see the dynamic updated lessons, and they can search together, and they can speak about several lessons that the trainer decided upon before because he knew that they are important. I'll stop here because I have so much to say. So we embed it into organizational routines. As you said, in some rooms, we also embed it into processes, into working instructions, into SOPs wherever we can, into templates. I had once a case where someone who didn't know at all about the lessons learned knowledge base used it and demonstrated usage because he found a link in the template near the work plan, near the potential risks and ways to overcome them, a link to the knowledge base. Having not to the full knowledge base, but querying the knowledge base of lessons doing with the specific stage, how to overcome risks. And he just saw 8 lessons and knew to choose 2. So when we embed it into templates with hyperlinks, querying on specific, filtering the knowledge base with specific bottom lines that deal with our metadata of the stage, of the technology, of the risk level, we bring the people closer to the knowledge. Maybe I didn't explain this, but the reason I showed here a cow that is drinking, we can bring the water as close as we can to the cow, but the cow has to decide to drink by itself. And that is what we are doing with our knowledge. We're bringing it closer to the employee, closer to the worker, closer to the person who needs it, in the templates, in the forms, in the checklists, in the stage gates, as you said, and in making mistakes more difficult to recall. We can also embed it into digital platforms, into the internet. I had once an internet of safety that every page you entered, doesn't matter if walking in heights or walking in the laboratory with special, poisoning, whatever, or if you were walking now with electricity, every page, when you entered it, you had a view, a filter of the knowledge base of the lessons on the first page of that content. That page was filtered with the lessons of our particular page of our particular content. And in this way, we bring the worker closer to us because he came to take a document or to take a form, to take something else. And when he came, he already sees the last lessons. And of course, with another link, he can open it and see much more. So we can put it into the internet. I have an organization that embedded it as we recommend it into the search. So every time you search, like with Google Ads, you first get the lessons and then you get all the documents. And remember, it's not documents, the lessons, they are bottom lines. So you see them and you understand them. So that way, in a positive way, we brainwash the people. We have a very good impact on them getting closer to the lessons. We embed it sometimes in the help routines when it has to do with processes. We add hyperlinks to systems, etc. So that is an additional part. So we spoke about it in several parts. And the last part, may I say, after we do everything, we have additional lessons, not formal lessons that we learn from debriefings, but learnings that were based on experience, because someone did something so many times, even if he didn't debrief, on quality processes like feedbacks and complaints and other 360 degrees processes, etc. And then we get the full picture. The full picture is that we have an action before we can request the knowledge, whether through going to the knowledge base, whether through a peer assessment or other ways. We have learning, some based on debriefs, some on quality-based processes, some on experiencing. We have an actions knowledge base, but that's not important. What's important is we have a knowledge base of our lessons. And the knowledge base of our lessons, everything comes in and we improve it as I teach. And when we improved it as I shared, we have with the purified knowledge, it's much easier to use. And then we embed it into the knowledge, we embed the knowledge in the organizational environment. I'll skip this one. And I'll give now Rinat. No, I'll answer 2 questions, and then I'll give Rinat the opportunity to speak about what happens in Jerusalem municipality. Yes, Rudolf, are you helping me out? No,
yes, I am. So the question has just come in. Can implementation of lessons be directly measured? If so, how?
Yes. Yes, there's a great way to measure lessons. From period to period, you learn what is the percentage of the recurring errors, the similar recurring errors, and what is the percentage of the recurring similar lessons. We're not speaking about the amount of the lessons and the amount of the errors. We're speaking about how many recurring ones we have in percentage. And we want these percentages to lower down, because we do not want to have recurring mistakes, similar ones even, or recurring learnings. Thank you. Another question.
Another question is, has anyone linked the voice of customer feedback and applied lessons learned to resolve them?
Okay, so as I said, when we go back to the quality-based processes, for example, the feedback from the customers, the output of them sometimes are tasks, action items, but some of the outputs are lessons, are learnings, how we can act better, even if we didn't hold a debriefing. So they go into the equation, they go into the process, into the pipeline, and we do not care how they were learned, if they were learned through debriefing and AR or through any other quality-based process. Thank you. Any additional question?
Not a question, but observation by Jan Hutter. He says that when identifying lessons learned, I find it important to be aware about the domain, the conniving domain in which it is applicable. For example, in a clear domain, a lesson might be a best practice, while in a complex domain, it could be a heuristic.
Okay, thank you, Jan, for your clarification. Very important. And we always speak about domains because sometimes different domains are different knowledge bases, but of course that in different contexts, in different organizations, it can be a bit different. It's not exactly the same. Now, I'm continuing sharing, but I'm turning to Rinat. Rinat, please lead us and tell us what happens in the Jerusalem municipality. I'm sorry you have a bit less time, but please, we are with you.
Hi, thank you, Maria. Hi, my name is Rinat Salem. I'm the director of the knowledge system at the Community Services Administration in Jerusalem Municipality of Israel. In my role, I deal with sharing and developing knowledge in the field of welfare community. I work in the welfare department, which provides services to families, the elderly, and children at risk. The welfare division in the Jerusalem municipality provides welfare services to a variety of populations: children, youth, families, individuals, the disabled, the elderly, new immigrants, and any individual or group who wishes to receive help through a social worker. The division provides information, counseling, care, social services, guidance, and meditation with other services. The Jerusalem Welfare Division is the largest of its kind in Israel and consists of over 600 social workers providing services to approximately 40,000 families. The central headquarters unit has 200 workers and more than 30 units throughout the city. The welfare services are provided in each individual neighborhood. The population in Jerusalem includes both Jews and Arabs, new immigrants, and the ultra-Orthodox. Jerusalem is a poor city. We have a lot of challenges in the welfare services. Next, please. Thank you. Prior to starting the intervention, we had used lesson learning for several years, but it was inconsistent and did not follow a methodology. As a result, lessons did not turn into common knowledge, and we experienced several similar events repeating themselves. Our project started in 2014. The organization already had a routine of learning lessons, but we were not satisfied with how the process was going. Until 2014, this is how the production discussion took place. Production discussions were mainly about extreme cases. Discussions were initiated by senior management. We acted with intuitive methodology. Documentation of discussion summaries had no uniform format. From reading the summaries of the meeting, it was not clear what the participant had learned from the event on which the meeting was being held. The information about the lesson learned did not reach all the employees who were required to accumulate the knowledge. The summaries of the discussions were circulated by email, but few had read it. Here are some examples of lessons we have learned over and over again from repeated mistakes. Each time, the lessons were learned in a different kind of discussion. For example, once about an elderly person at risk and once about a child at risk. In analyzing the summaries of the discussions, we found a lack of coordination between the employees, difficulty in protecting the needy due to a lack of coordination between welfare services and parole services, decline in the situation of the needy, children or elderly, due to the difficulty in implementing committee decisions. So we have to improve our methodology. We decided to improve it. We took 3 steps. First, we conducting a debriefing. Second, we creating a lesson pool management. And at last, we integrating the lessons back into the work process. The welfare department already had a culture of learning lessons. The lesson debriefing phase needed to be improved. So we have made 4 changes. First, we have expanded the experience of leading the debriefing. Second, we have introduced a uniform format for summarizing the debriefing. Then, in order to improve the lesson debriefing, we adopted the AAR method. And last, the conclusions from the debriefing were collaborated across the organization's unit. So the worker would be more aware of the lessons. We incorporated an AAR methodology, which means after action review, which asks 4 questions. What happened? What we accepted to happen? Why there was a gap? What we would recommend. In each discussion, we ask exactly the same 4 questions. I want to define the difference between a task and a lesson. The task has a person in charge and a schedule for carrying it out, whereas a lesson is a recommendation for future action based on past experience. We have 3 types of lessons discussion: individual family care, internal organizational work processes, and lessons learned during emergency cases. As the lesson discussion summary accumulated, it was necessary to establish a database of insights. We wanted to make insights accessible to employees quickly and clearly. Therefore, we created the database of lessons in the SharePoint system. Each lesson was tagged within a collection of tags by topic, by type of population, and by the type of work process. The insights were then arranged and made accessible according to the tags. The employee now has the ability to search for a lesson using a keyword. As a new knowledge item in the knowledge base of lesson was incorrupted, a message was sent to the relevant social worker. Creating a knowledge base of lesson was not enough. The actions were taken to integrate the lessons into the work environment. Since employees were not looking for lessons learned, we worked at the same time to integrate the lessons back into the work process. We have done this in a number of ways: in the computer science system, in the procedures, in the process of absorbing a new employee. Each quarter, Moria, okay. Each quarter, the management requests a report from each unit on the effort of assimilation. Here is an example of the lessons that were reflected from the knowledge-based lesson from the internet into the computer science system. A social worker who welcomes a new client is required to pay attention to a number of elements when documenting his activities in absorbing a new client. He gets the important information and lesson learned in this process. Here we have two examples of assimilation of lessons. First, we integrate flash lesson in a senior meeting, staff meeting, for 15 minutes. Each time, another manager talked about the new lessons. Second, once a month, we send a newsletter about the new lessons to keep a focus on the subject. This slide presents the data from research we did to examine the effectiveness of the model after we had implemented it. In the study, we examined the number of discussions, the number of lessons learned, and the quality of the lessons made available to the workers in order to improve their work. We conduct interviews with employees and ask them about the usefulness of the lesson learned. We found that the methodology has improved the work in the organization. You can read about the study in details in the article we published. Today, we have put many efforts into assimilating the lesson learned, but we have no statistics. Most of the critical knowledge already collected, and employees are unfamiliar in the incidental events that were discussed in the past. What is important to us is to the lessons have been assimilated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Rinat. Rinat is a knowledge manager in Jerusalem municipality, as we said. I want to end, we have 1 more minute. Learning at the end, I'll show it so we are in better mode. Learning at the end of the day is shift in performance based on new knowledge created. Our mission is to turn lessons to lessons learned. And that's what we spoke about today, not only having the lessons, but to turn them to shift in performance, to better achievements, to better organizations, to lessons that are actually learned. So thank you. And if there are some questions, and whoever wants to leave, okay, and whoever has a question now, I'm still here.
Dolph here. I was checking the chats. There are no questions, but for a very nice insight from Paul Hector. He said once his, Paul, are you there? Why don't you just put on your microphone and speak it out?
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's see, I'll just turn my camera on. Great. So I just wanted to share the story. You know, once I said to my mom, you know, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink. And my mom looked at me and she said, oh, really? Yes, you can. It's very easy. You just need to add salt to the water. And if you add the salt, then it must drink. And if any of you have lived on a farm or have been around, let's say, farm animals, you know, if you're perspiring, you know, they'll just come up to you and they'll, you know, try to lick you because, you know, it's almost as if they're addicted to the salt. So I think one of the things that we need to think about in structuring our knowledge management systems is trying to identify what is that sort of compelling reason that will excite the audience that we're you know, trying to reach. And so, of course, we can think about tools like, for example, or processes, strategies, things like gamification, or maybe thinking about, I don't know, what are the things that make people decide easily, you know, so thinking about the sort of cognitive aspects. So, yeah, and I really like that other point, which I think it was Marco mentioned, where he said that sometimes people will only change if the pain is just becomes unbearable. I mean, perhaps we don't want to be in that situation, but yeah, that's also something which is very important. People tend to resist change, even though everyone says change is so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for your insights. Thank you, Rudolf, for your help. Yes, we
well,
always
use... my mom, and happy International Women's Day to all the women here on the call.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah, and it was the two women who led us today, so it's very appropriate.
Yes, so we always use all our tools, our toolbox of gamification and a sense of urgency and what's in it for me. But today we tried to find the methodology itself, and I hope that most of us got at least one new idea. If anyone has any more questions, I can send you to my book, I can send you to some articles, and I can answer any question each one of you have. Thank you and good day, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Maria. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Maria
Bye.
and Renat. Very